Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Give it about 1 minute. Let some people join in here from Discord. Always excited to have Brantley of Ethereum Name Service joining us. Ethereum Name Service, making blockchain make sense. Get us out of the numbers.
Yeah, and always happy to be here. Chainlink's great. We love Chainlink. ENS and Chainlink are friends.
Sweet. Yeah, welcome everyone that's coming in from the Discord. If you have questions throughout this, definitely drop them into the YouTube chat. I also see some in Discord, so we'll answer those at the end. As we're going along, just drop your questions and then we'll be able to get to those. Let me just drop this also in the Telegram real fast. Sweet. Yeah, without further ado, Brantley, yeah, thanks again for joining us. And yeah, I'll let you take it away.
Great, thanks very much. So I'm going to be talking about the Ethereum name service. This is just going to be a kind of a generic overview. You know, if you knew nothing about ENS, I'm going to try to kind of get you up to speed on the basics. So my name is Brantley Milligan. I actually work for an organization called True Names Limited, which is a nonprofit. And we are the de facto managers of the open source project Ethereum Name Service. So nobody like works for Ethereum Name Service. ENS is an open source project that, you know, we're just like the main people managing it. There's our GitHub, there's our website. Our lead developer is Nick Johnson, he's the creator of it. Here's the outline of what I'm going to talk about. So just what is ENS, and then how ENS works, and then how to integrate ENS, and just, you know, how you can use ENS in your dapp. So ENS, of course, stands for Ethereum Name Service. So first I'm going to talk about how is it a name service? So like, what is a name service? So a name service is really simple. It's just a lookup system. That's it. There's names, there's information attached. You like give someone a name, they look up the information attached to that name. A lot of people try to overcomplicate ENS and naming services in general. They think we're like receiving your payment and passing it on or something. We're not doing any of that. It's just simply a lookup system. So you provide a name, the naming system provides you with information. Your computer then might do something with that information, but that is separate from the naming system. Why do we have naming services? Because computer identifiers, which can be automatically generated and numbers and letters and work great for software, are not easily read by humans. And things that make sense to humans, like language that has social context and things like this, is not easily understood and allocated by a computer. So a naming service bridges the gap between computers and humans. So ENS, it has names, it has owners of those names, and it has records attached to those names that can store any information. You can store any information in your ENS record. You could store your phone number. You could store your favorite bubble gum. You could store a Bitcoin address, an Ethereum address, IP address, anything that you want. So for example, let's say I want to send Bitcoin to an ENS name. I type that into a wallet. I want to say I want to send the Bitcoin to that name. The wallet takes that name, looks up the name on ENS on Ethereum, grabs the Bitcoin address, and then the wallet sends the Bitcoin transaction on the Bitcoin network. So this is like confusing to a lot of people. They think, oh, ENS runs on Ethereum. How can you like do Bitcoin transactions? Because they think that it's like being sent to ENS and ENS forwards along. No. We're just providing the address of where it goes. The wallet does the sending. So why is it the Ethereum name service? It's not because it's a naming service only for the Ethereum ecosystem. Common misconception. Banish that from your mind. It's because it's a naming service built on Ethereum. So the logic and the records are stored on Ethereum, but it can store information relevant to anything. So things that have other, related to other blockchains, or even things unrelated to blockchains. Like I said, your favorite bubblegum, your phone number, or whatever you want. So why do we use Ethereum? Because we think it's the best blockchain platform. I mean, that's the answer. So some reasons here. It has high security and decentralization. It has great ecosystem infrastructure, better than any other blockchain. things like MetaMask and Fiora. I mean, you can't easily replicate these things. It has standards. So for example, all ENS names are ERC 721 NFTs. So that's really useful. We can take advantage of that standard. So ENS names like plug into all the NFT infrastructure. Programmability, and then interaction with other contracts on Ethereum, so composability. If we were on a different chain or on our own special chain for ENS, we would miss out on all that stuff. So ENS uses Ethereum to serve the internet, including and beyond the Ethereum ecosystem. Our goal is to make ENS and therefore Ethereum a basic piece of internet infrastructure used widely by people, whether they are part of the blockchain community or not. This is our goal. And we're doing this in part by complementing the DNS tech stack in parallel, expanding the capabilities of the existing DNS namespace, focusing on use cases not served by DNS, and in some cases not possible in DNS. So I'm going to explain what this means, but a lot of people think, oh, ENS, that's .eth names. That's true, but we're actually much bigger than .eth names. And our vision is, like I said, that we actually just want to complement the existing DNS infrastructure in parallel. I'll explain more about that in a bit. So how does ENS work? There are no servers. I mean, we like run our website on a web server, although we also mirror our manager on IPFS, but like ENS proper has no servers. So sometimes people ask me, oh, how do I hook into ENS, or do I need to get permission, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it's just smart contracts in Ethereum. It runs itself. Our nonprofit manages it, but if we disappeared, everything keeps working because it just runs on Ethereum. There are three main parts to ENS, how it works. So there's what's called the registry. The ENS registry is a smart contract, SC smart contract, that holds names, owners, resolvers, and TTLs. So it has the names that exist, it has the Ethereum account that owns that name, and then the resolver is basically where you find the records for that name, which could be just another smart contract. I'll explain that in a second. The TTL is something that we're not really using, but that is in there. I want to explain it. Okay, so that's the registry. The registry is like the core of ENS, like the core. Then you've got resolvers. So a resolver is a smart contract that stores and serves records. So there is a smart contract that we maintain called the public resolver. And it's the smart contract that has all the ENS standard records, and like 99.99% of people just use the public resolver. In fact, like if you register an ENS name, it automatically sets up the public resolver for you, and even the ETH address record, the Ethereum address record for you. Because that's what 99.99% of people are going to use. We split these things up though, because one, we can upgrade the public resolver contract without having to touch the registry. Number one. Number two, you don't have to use our public resolver contract, which is our record set. You can make your own record set if you want. You can have custom resolvers. Okay, so the third part is registrars. So a registrar in ENS is a smart contract that creates and distributes names based on certain criteria, for example, payment. So for example, the .eth, what's called top-level domain, that's a top-level domain, TLD, is owned by a smart contract. And the way you get a .eth name, a .eth name, is if you send certain transactions to that contract that meet certain criteria. And if you do, then it gives you the name that you're wanting. So in this case, the criteria is like, it doesn't already exist. And based on length, you paid the correct cost. Very simple. But you could, let's say if I had Brantley.eth, I could give that over to a registrar contract that could have whatever criteria I want for dispensing names. So that's what a registrar contract is. Of course, because it runs on Ethereum, to make any change, registering names, setting records, transferring ownership, etc., the user submits a certain kind of Ethereum transaction or set of transactions. That's only to make a change. Of course, resolutions, or lookups don't cost anything because you're simply reading from the Ethereum blockchain. So if I'm sending Bitcoin to Brantley.xyz, the lookup part there, the ENS part, doesn't cost anything because the wallet is just looking up on the Ethereum blockchain, grabbing the information. You only have to pay gas fees when you're making a change to the state on Ethereum. Okay, so I mentioned the public resolver, which is like the records that we maintain that like pretty much everybody uses. So this is what it looks like. So the first record type is addresses. Addresses are just cryptocurrency addresses. We support basically all, I mean, in principle, we support all cryptocurrency addresses. You can store any cryptocurrency addresses. In practice, we support, I think, about 110 in our manager for setting, which, that's pretty deep. And remember, that's blockchain addresses. So like if you have an Ethereum address, that works for all ERC20 tokens or ERC721 NFTs, or any Ethereum object obviously works with that Ethereum address. So, 110 blockchain addresses deep is really deep, and, covers pretty much any type of thing that you would possibly want to interact with your ENS name. We can add more blockchains as needed to our manager and our what's called our address encoding library. But that's addresses. So you can store an Ethereum address, Bitcoin address, Dogecoin address, EOS address, Near address, Solana address, whatever you want. Then we have a content record. The content record can store an IPFS hash, a swarm hash, a Tor.onion address, and actually this slide is slightly out of date. We just added the ability to have SIA hashes as well for Skynet, which is cool. We haven't really announced that publicly, so you're hearing that here. We're still working on getting that used some places, but it does technically support that. Then we have text records, which just can be any arbitrary information. So the way text records work is you have what's called a text record key, and then which basically like identifies what the information is. Excuse me, sorry about that. Text records, you have a text record key, which kind of identifies what the information is, and then you have the data. There's some like standard text record types. So like URL or avatar, you see them in our manager, but you can create any key that you want. What this means is that your project can have custom ENS records without having to talk to us. You just use a text record. So like if you have a new project called, private send, you just make, a text record key that's like private send. It could be that, or it could be shorter. And then you put whatever your identifier you're using for your project in there, and you can use that and other people can use that. So any project can have their own ENS record type, and you can store any arbitrary information. So like I said, your own favorite bubblegum type, put it in a text record if you want. And then we also support DNS records, although that's not in our manager UI. It is in public resolver. If you want to see example of records for yourself, go to our manager app, app.ens.domains. And I would just search for brantley.xyz. That's a name that I own. And it doesn't have every single record we possibly support, but it has like a lot of them. It will kind of give you a sense of what you can store in ENS records. So let's talk about the namespace on ENS. So ENS is like naming infrastructure. It's a protocol that can support any names. A lot of people, again, think that ENS equals .eth names. It's not. ENS has .eth names, but it has other names. And in fact, it can have and is expanding its namespace over time. So .eth names are, .eth is like the native TLD on ENS. And that is native, because it's native, it has certain special properties, like self-custody and others. But we are expanding the namespace on ENS by integrating the existing DNS namespace. And we've already integrated top-level domains like .xyz, .lux, .cred, .co, .art, .club. And the rest are coming soon. In fact, the rest are actually on Ropsten right now. If you look at our Twitter account, it has information about how you can test that. It's a little bit more complicated than this, but basically what this means is that if you have a domain on DNS, let's say brantley.com, you can then claim brantley.com, not brantley.eth, brantley.com on ENS. So just like how I had brantley.xyz, the reason I have that name is because I own brantley.xyz on DNS. And then because I own it on DNS, I'm able to prove, there's a process to prove ownership, and claim brantley.xyz on ENS. Brantley.eth is a separate name. I also happen to own brantley.eth, but those are two different names. So basically the vision is that, this is what I was talking about, complementing and expanding DNS. the DNS namespace that already exists can also then work on ENS. It's just like extra functionality for that namespace. I think this is pretty exciting. Let's just compare ENS and DNS real quick. We're not trying to replace DNS right now. DNS works really, really well for certain things, but we think ENS works better for certain things. Just some examples of how they differ. So ENS has simpler infrastructure, right? Servers are replaced by smart contracts. ENS, of course, has zero downtime by definition because it's just running on the blockchain. Ethereum has had no downtime. In fact, you can have the Ethereum blockchain on your own local computer. ENS is decentralized, more decentralized and censorship resistant. It has built-in cryptography and individual ownership or self-custody, which DNS doesn't have, which we think then means better security. And of course, I mentioned programmability and interactivity, composability. Basically, ENS is part of this blockchain smart contract world. So how do those translate to use cases? So I'll talk more about this in a second, but just like the better security and censorship resistance, we think makes ENS better suited for like cryptocurrency addresses and IPFS websites. You could technically do that with DNS. You could store a Bitcoin address in a DNS record, but we think ENS is better for that because it's better security. And then programmability, interactivity, composability. So you can have like names owned by smart contracts or groups like a DAO. It's an NFT. You have things held in escrow. You can have ENS names that nobody owns. You can have like a .eth name. You register it, set up the records, and then send it to a burn address, and then it still exists, and it still resolves, but nobody owns it. That's kind of interesting. That's not even possible conceptually in DNS the way it works. So how to integrate ENS? I'm not going to be like showing you the code snippets, although if you go to our docs.ens.domains, it's super simple, especially if you're using a library, and it tells you exactly what to copy and paste. But I'm just going to show the types of things you can do with ENS in your dapp. So the basic goal is that every time a user might otherwise see a cryptocurrency address or content hash, they should instead see an ENS name. Users should be interacting with, like bare Ethereum hex addresses and hashes and things like that as little as possible. That's ridiculous. It's terrible UI. If your dapp has people mostly interacting with that or doesn't even give them the option to use ENS, it's just terrible. It's a terrible user experience. So we think just ENS should be everywhere, totally ubiquitous. Most users should not even know that these other hex addresses exist. It's like how most users don't even know that they have an IP address. It's all hidden away for them, right? So the number one use case, I'd say with ENS, kind of our bread and butter, is cryptocurrency address forward resolution. So forward resolution means I enter a name and then the wallet resolves that to the appropriate cryptocurrency address. Now, if I have, let's say, a Bitcoin address, Dogecoin address, Ethereum address, all these things in my records, how does the wallet know which one to send it to? Well, based on context. So if I'm trying to send Bitcoin, it knows to grab the Bitcoin address. Or if I'm sending Dogecoin, it grabs the Dogecoin address. So very simple. I type in an ENS name, it grabs the address. Great, now I can send it. Very simple. Another use case is Ethereum address reverse resolution. So if forward resolution is you provide a name and that resolves to an address. Reverse resolution is the opposite. You have an address and it resolves to a name. When is this useful? Let's say I log into your dapp with Wallet Connect or MetaMask or something like this. You know my Ethereum public address. And often dapps will show some shortened version of that up in the corner to show what you kind of logged in with. Again, terrible UI. With reverse resolution, you can take that address and do a lookup and say, hey, is there an ENS name associated with that? Oh, there is, and then show that instead. So our manager has this, Uniswap has this, lots of dapps have this. Highly recommend. Again, super easy to implement. So it'd be this would be up in the corner, and oh, that's terrible UI. Oh, it shows my ENS name instead. You can still even show my Ethereum address below it or something if you want, but I think this is better. So username. So this would be similar, but you could get a second level domain. So this would be yourproject.eth, and then maybe give users subdomains or something like this. Of course, right now gas costs are really high, but so I might not recommend this right now, but we're working on layer 2 stuff for ENS. I'll talk more about that in a second. So use cases, I mentioned our content record, IPFS swarm, tornado resolution, of course, CA hashes too, although we just kind of came out with that. Let's say like I'm in MetaMask mobile or I'm in the Brave browser or something. I can type in an ENS name and it resolves it to an IPFS website. This works right now in Opera, Brave, any browser with MetaMask, MetaMask mobile, Status. I think there's a couple other extensions. Then also in anything, in any browser, if you just add .link. So we have this project called ETH DNS. Basically, it does a bunch of things, but one thing it does is that you just type in your name.eth and then add .link to the end. And it will then resolve it like a normal website in any browser. We actually just recently passed over the running of the backend for that to Cloudflare, which is really cool. You can test it. I'd recommend go to almonet.eth.link. That's actually an IPFS plus ENS like directory, which is really cool. That should work. Also, with the Tor browser, you can try things. You can look on our blog for more things about this. DNS records. We don't do a ton with this, but there is one project, .cred, which is a DNS TLD, which is working on ENS, and actually it uses ENS and IPFS as source to store DNS records, which is really cool. And then, of course, everything we haven't thought of. So you can have custom resolvers, you can have your custom record types with text records, you can store anything. So, a cool thing about ENS is that it's permissionless. You can do anything you want. So, use it for cool things we haven't thought of. Feel free. Useful links. Yeah, other things. I just want to real quick say just a few quick words before I take questions on scaling and layer 2 stuff. If you go on our Twitter, me and Nick did a live stream about this. We have a Twitter thread, and we have stuff on our blog about our plans. And the bottom line is we're working on it. We've already been working on it for several months. Gas costs are super high. We don't like it. The first step is we're gonna make it so that you can put records and subdomains on the layer 2 of your choice. And Nick is actually currently working on an MVP of that. And then he's gonna write a standard, and hopefully by mid-year we could have that out. But it's not out right now, so it's not, you can't use it. And then hopefully maybe by the end of the year, we could get the .eth registrar itself on a layer 2. That's a little bit more complicated. The main message I would just say is, we know it's bad, it's expensive. If you're hacking, with ENS, maybe just use it on Ropsten or another testnet, so you can use it for your dapp without having to pay tons of gas, because we are on all those things. But we're working on it. Great. All right, Keenan, do we have any questions? Or did I perfectly explain everything that people would want to know?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Brantley. I think you pretty much nailed it. No, I'm kidding. There's some good questions in here. So one of the first ones that I wanted to ask you.
And read all of them. I like the ones that have like snarky comments or something.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys hear that? So there's still time. Add your questions into the chat. I'm going to start with the ones that are in Discord that haven't been answered. So is it like a domain for the IPFS protocol in a way, and can like your domain be used for wallets? And you kind of answered some of these, but yeah, like your take on some of these questions.
Yeah, I would say ENS can name anything. So that includes IPFS hashes, and we have support in multiple browsers and extensions and things like that. So decentralized web is a major use case that we have. We're the leaders in that. I'll just also mention we're in 183 services. So there are a couple other blockchain-based naming projects out there that have had various levels of success, and they may improve. ENS so far is the leader, and we have more we have more integrations than all the other projects combined, like ×3. So we have a list on our website, ens.domains, ENS ecosystem section. You can see a list of all the places where ENS works. But yeah, so it names anything that you want.
Cool. In the past hackathons, what have been some of your favorite applications of using ENS?
There was one hackathon called Hackathon had a project called Storegate, which actually added our tor.onion address support, which is cool. So that's the thing. Like, if you build something cool that extends ENS, we might add it in. I mean,
Yeah.
why not? Other than that, I would just say ENS is the type of thing that just, no matter what you're building, you should just have ENS in there just as a user experience thing. So it's not like you have to be building on ENS. Just build whatever else you want, and all dApps should have ENS for the user interface.
Cool. There's one question. Maybe I could take this. What does ENS stand for? That would be Ethereum Name Services.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And then, so wait, what's the exact cost? So it's gas plus how much to register name?
So it depends on the name. If it's a DNS name on ENS, there is no additional cost. There's just the gas cost, which the gas cost might be a lot, but there's no additional ENS cost. For .eth names, it depends on how long. So if it's 5 characters or longer, there's only $5 per year ENS cost. Mm-hmm. You can pay that ahead if you want. So you're like, I don't want to have to worry about it. You can pay for 10 years and forget about it. So that's $5. So you could like pay for $50 and you have for 10 years. For 4 characters, then it goes up significantly because shorter names get much, much rarer. So then 4 characters is $160 a year, and 3 characters is $640 a year, and then 1 and 2 character .eth names are not available. The thinking there is like, look, if you have a 3-character name and you're not getting $640 worth of value out of it per year, then release the name, get a 5-character name, and let somebody else use that 3-character name. So that's why the price goes up.
Do you see a lot of domain hoarders or people that have kind of like scooped up some of these names, and is there like a secondary market for these?
Yeah, so I mean, there are people who do that, and that's fine. I mean, you can go to OpenSea, and there's lots of trading there. I think ENS is regularly kind of one of the top like NFT things that's traded there. But I would say we have kind of tried to build our system to discourage name squatting. And the reason for that is, one, if just other people register up all the names and then they're going to sell them to people or rent them out to people, they're just like unnecessary middleman, right? That's just kind of rent extraction. 2, maybe they don't use it. So like, we don't want to have like the most names registered. We want the most names actually being used. Now, you can't completely stop name squatting on a secondary market, and that's fine. It's not like evil or anything, but that's certainly not something we're like encouraging. In fact, the primary reason we even have a yearly fee is to make it costly for people to be holding names they're not using, to encourage them to then release them so other people can use them. So for example, some people say, why don't you just have like a one-time payment and then you own it forever? Well, so like Unstoppable Domains has this, the .crypto. One, you kind of can still do this because you can pay ahead. You could pay ahead for 50 years if you want, or 100 years. I mean, that's practically forever. 2, we don't want names lost forever. So let's say somebody has an ENS name, they lose their private key. Is that name just, that's it forever and ever, it's gone? We want a way that it can kind of come back. And 3, like we said, we'd like to have some way to encourage people, if you're not using a name, just to voluntarily give it up so other people can use it.
Cool. Makes sense. And so I'm kind of curious about this, and you might have touched upon it. So like the .eth, so is this the nonprofit that you actually work for to support Ethereum name service? Did they file with ICANN, or is like the .eth through ICANN, and that's how this also kind of works through the web, and it's through the nonprofit, or how's that kind of function?
Good question. So no, .eth is not in the ICANN managed ENS root. It's a little bit more complicated though, which I don't know if I want to get into it here, but basically .eth is reserved such that nobody can register it, and it's highly likely it'll never be used in DNS ever, which is convenient, but it's not. We'd like to eventually maybe totally formally resolve that, but it's very important to us. We don't want to create naming collisions with existing DNS because we think that's bad for users. It's going to lead to lost funds. It's going to create unnecessary conflict. But that's the answer.
Cool. I got some good ones for you. Gas cost is $100. There's no alternative at the moment. Matic question mark possibly.
Yeah, no, it is out of control. I mean, it's terrible. Every time, guys, every time we want to do anything on ENS, it costs a ton too. Remember, and that's not going to us. That's just going to miners. This is like just lost, money. So as I mentioned, we're working on getting parts of ENS on layer 2s. It's currently in process. You can go to our Twitter account. You can find more information about it. It's complicated. We're trying to do it right. It's going to take at least a couple months before there's any kind of relief. I know it's painful. I'm sorry, but we're working on it.
Awesome. As long as we're working on it, yeah, it's an ecosystem.
Like we're on the war path. That's like our main. Seriously, it's like our main thing this year is like layer 2.
Is there going to be an Avalanche name service anytime soon?
Yeah, so we support Avalanche addresses in ENS. Remember, it's just the fact it's on Ethereum. So it doesn't mean you can't support addresses for other things. So you could send out, AVAX tokens to Brantley.xyz or Brantley.eth if you want to. If you're asking, are we going to build on Avalanche? No, we're not, because Ethereum is the best place to be. That, at least in our opinion.
Cool. Love the answer. And one last question. So when someone's paying for these domains, does besides the gas cost, does this go towards the nonprofit, or who gets that cost?
Yeah, so it's a little complicated, but the short answer is it goes to, there is what's called there's a 4 of 7 multisig that what we call the ENS root. So I don't want to explain all that it does, but it's basically 6 other community members and then 1 person from our team has a 4 of 7 multisig that does a couple different things for ENS. All the funds go to that. And the idea is that we haven't needed that money because we've had other sources of funds, but we could petition them, say, hey, we think we're doing a good job managing the open source project ENS. Could we have some of this money to pay our costs? I'd say so the plan is that basically that money will be used for long-term sustainable funding, maintenance, promotion of ENS. That's the plan. Cool. But it doesn't come straight to us.
Yep. Sweet. Yeah, well, that's about all the questions. Before we wrap up, any last words of wisdom, anything inspiring that you got to say to all the hackers that are listening in?
If you add ENS into your thing, I mean, not only can you win the hackathon prize, but if you just release any dapp ever that has ENS in production, let us know, because we will put you on our website. We'll retweet you. We'll help promote you. Please let us know.
Love it. Lots of opportunities out there for everyone listening. And like Brantley was saying earlier, work on your project. ENS is something that just makes it user-friendly, that you can go and be able to easily integrate. They got a lot of prizes. They really help the ecosystem. So definitely support them. They'll support you. We'll support everyone. Otherwise, Brantley, really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. And it's always a pleasure.
Yep. Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Well, thanks, everyone.